Sit down. I want to talk about schools. Is this going to be another one of your lectures? Why schools of all things? Under the current administration, as well as following the tendencies of the education sector as a whole recently, there's been a massive push for charter and privatized school across America, while our public school districts struggle through the year with nowhere near enough funding to address a wide variety of needs presented by American children.
That sounds like a good thing to me. If our government or public schools are failing our students, then of course American parents should have options in their child's education. Charter schools provide many varieties of specific alternative styles of education.
Go on. It's no secret that accommodations made for students with special needs are sorely lacking in our public schools. Why shouldn't parents who only want the best for their child be able to send them to schools specialized for that kind of environment? I'm afraid that if that's how this really worked, then we wouldn't need to be having this conversation. According to this peer-reviewed article by Education Next from 2014, there's only about 50 to 60 charter schools in America that cater primarily to students with disabilities. That is really only about one per state. And I won't say that these schools don't have a beneficial impact on their students, but very few people actually have access to these resources. Just expanding the charter school system won't necessarily help either. This article also reports that nationally, proportionally, charter schools serve far fewer students with special needs than district schools. 8% of charter school students self-identify as disabled, while 13.1% of district schools do. The situation you've described could work in theory, but in practice, those cases are few and far between compared to district schools. Well, regardless, charter schools are often more specialized and offer a higher quality of education in their specific field. This forces public schools to improve their own standards of education, and everyone gets ahead. It's nothing more than a little free market capitalism to enhance everyone's experience. Not quite. It isn't really appropriate to compare public schools to public-private hybrid schools like charters, using capitalist rational choice theory. It really is apples and oranges. That being said, though, while it should be obvious, it was pointed out in an education policy analysis article from last year that not every family has access to the information or financial resources to move to a well-performing school district. If they did, there wouldn't be any underperforming school districts, as everyone would just go to the good ones. Well, what if I told you that? One more thing. In several states across the country, charter schools really aren't better, to the point of absurdity. On October 29th, Philly magazine reminded parents to not forget to Google any schools you're looking at to make sure they weren't once unexpectedly shut down or run by a CEO who pleaded guilty to theft. Last Week Tonight really does a better job handling this particular topic than I can. He's less annoying to listen to than you as well.
That's fair. I do have one more thing I want to bring up, though.
Ugh. Though they are run by private education planning companies, charter schools are public institutions and they receive government money to run. If you got involved in our local school district, you'd learn that charters receive $12,000 to $13,000 per student from the school district. And the school district also has to pay to provide services that the charter school doesn't, such as busing or services for students with special needs. Good. Students should be able to have access to these services.
However, there is one crucial difference between how charter and district schools get funded.
And what's that? When district schools don't use all of their funding, they get less funding in the next year. When charter schools don't use all of their funding, it stays the same and the owners make a profit. This incentivizes charter schools to spend as little as possible per student to maximize their own profits. That's a very cynical view to take on educators. They're not all educators. Most charter schools have very few restrictions on who is allowed to be a teacher. Money talks. You know what?
I went to a charter school, and I find all of this very personally offensive.
I'm not saying you're a bad person for having gone to a charter school. I'm not even saying your experience was inherently worse than that of a district school. It might even have been better. That does not take away, though, from the fact that the charter school system, as we know it today, has many deep-rooted structural flaws that lower the overall value of education among American students. Check. All right. You haven't changed my mind, understand, but my foundational beliefs on the subject have been challenged.
Good to hear.
Check. It doesn't matter, though. No.
Small government Republicans control the government for now. It's in their ideological benefit to fund what they see as government schools as little as possible to increase participation in charter and private schools. This then further negatively impacts public schools, giving more ammo to politicians looking to cut education spending. Then we can give all of that money saved to the 1% in the form of tax breaks.
Does the fact that that's how it is change how it should be?
I don't know. It's a draw. Hey, do you want to play Mario Kart? I've got some great election reform ideas I'd love to talk about.